Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into something a bit more comfortable. A tale about Dionysus, the Greek god of wine, revelry, and apparently the world's first pajama designer. Picture yourself sprawled on a cloud-soft bed, the moonlight sneaking through your window, casting grapevine shadows on the walls. The air smells faintly of fermented fruit, and somewhere, a lyre strums a sleepy tune. But don't get too cozy. You probably won't survive this epic quest for the perfect night's sleep without giggling at least once. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on the slopes of Mount Olympus, the air crisp and tingling with divine energy. Below, the mortal world buzzes with its usual chaos, but up here something's off. Dionysus, the god with a leopard skin cape and a goblet that never runs dry, isn't his usual party self. His eyes are heavy, his curls droop, and he's slouched against a marble column like a college kid after finals week. You notice his bare feet tapping restlessly on the cold stone. He's muttering about sleepless nights, about how even gods can't catch a break when their beds feel like piles of straw. You catch a whiff of his wine-soaked breath as he groans. I deserve better than this scratchy tunic for sleep. You follow his gaze to the starry sky, where the other gods are probably tossing and turning in their golden beds. Dionysus isn't alone in his misery. Historical records from ancient Greece, like Hesiod's Theogony, paint the gods as restless beings, their divine drama spilling into the mortal world. If Zeus can't sleep, storms rage. If Athena's cranky, wisdom takes a holiday. Dionysus, though, has a wilder idea than most. He's not just after a nap. He wants to reinvent sleep itself. You smirk as he trips over a stray vine, cursing in ancient Greek. Typical Dionysus, always extra even when he's exhausted. A quirky tidbit floats through your mind. Some ancient Greeks believed gods could suffer human ailments, like insomnia, if their worship waned. Temples to Dionysus often doubled as party hubs, but neglected altars meant a grumpy, sleepless god. You picture him glaring at a half-empty offering plate, his mood as sour as unripe grapes. Historians still argue whether the Greeks saw their gods as truly human-like or just exaggerated metaphors for mortal struggles. Either way, Dionysus is fed up, and you're tagging along as he decides to fix his sleep problem with something no one's ever dreamed of: pajamas. You trail him through a vineyard, the leaves rustling like whispers of his plan. He's not thinking about boring old linen sheets or the rough wool chitons mortals wear to bed. No, he's Dionysus. His solution has to be lush, decadent, like a sip of his finest vintage. You step over a puddle of spilled wine, chuckling at the thought of him. Sewing anything without stabbing his own fingers. The guy's more likely to throw a bacchanal than thread a needle. Yet here he is, eyeing the grapevines with a gleam that says, "This is gonna be legendary." You feel the night air cool your skin, the stars winking like they're in on the secret. Whatever he's cooking up, it's gonna change bedtime forever. As you wander deeper into the vineyard, Dionysus pauses to pluck a grape, popping it into his mouth with a dramatic sigh. "Mortals and gods," he says, glancing at you, "we're all just chasing one good dream." You nod, stifling a yawn, because honestly, who hasn't stared at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wishing for something softer to wear? His idea feels absurd. Pajamas. In ancient Greece? But you're hooked. You step over a fallen branch, the scent of earth and fruit wrapping around you like a blanket. This is no ordinary myth. This is the story of how a sleep-deprived god decided to make bedtime, well, divine. You're still trailing Dionysus, his leopard skin cape flapping as he stumbles through the vineyard, muttering about his grand pajama plan. The night air on Mount Olympus feels heavier now, like the gods' collective exhaustion is pressing down. You glance up, half expecting to see Zeus tossing thunderbolts in a sleep-deprived tantrum. Dionysus stops short, nearly spilling his goblet, and points to the twinkling lights of the divine palaces. "You think I'm the only one who can't sleep?" He scoffs, his voice dripping with that signature godly sarcasm. You follow his gaze, and suddenly you're not just in his story. You're plunged into the chaos of Olympus's sleep crisis. Picture it. Gods, immortal and all-powerful, pacing their marble halls like overtired toddlers. You imagine Hera, her peacock feathers wilting, snapping at servants because her silk sheets feel like sandpaper. Poseidon's probably flooding coastal villages every time he flips his pillow in frustration. A historical nugget pops into your mind. Ancient Greek texts like Homer's Iliad often describe gods meddling in mortal affairs when they're restless. Sleeplessness on Olympus wasn't just a divine inconvenience. It messed with the world below. You smirk, thinking of Zeus rage-tweeting lightning bolts at 4 a.m. if X existed back then. Dionysus kicks a pebble, sending it skittering into a grapevine. "Even Apollo's oracles are off," he grumbles. "Last week one predicted a goat would rule Athens, a goat." You stifle a laugh, picturing a bleeding king on a throne. The gods got a point, though. A quirky tidbit surfaces. Some ancient Greeks believed insomnia angered the gods so much they'd curse mortals with bad dreams. Temples to Hypnos, the sleep god, were littered with offerings from desperate worshippers. You can almost smell the burnt herbs and hear the clink of coins left for a decent nap. You step over a gnarled root, the vineyard's earthy scent mixing with the faint tang of spilled wine. Dionysus is pacing now, his bare feet smudged with dirt. He's ranting about how immortality doesn't mean comfort. Eternal life, sure, but eternal itchiness? No thanks. You nod, relating a bit too much to that one time you tried sleeping in a cheap polyester shirt. Historians still argue whether the gods' human-like flaws in myths were meant to mirror mortal struggles, or just make epic tales juicier. Either way, Olympus is a hot mess, and Dionysus is done with it. You follow him to a cliff's edge, where the mortal world sprawls below like a patchwork quilt under the stars. He gestures wildly, his goblet sloshing. "If we're this miserable, imagine the humans." You squint, picturing farmers and philosophers tossing on straw mats, their tunics bunching up like ancient torture devices. Dionysus's plan, pajamas, feels less ridiculous now. You catch a glint in his eye like he's already dreaming of soft fabrics and cozy nights. You're tempted to high-five him, but he's a god, so you just grin. As you trek back through the vines, a breeze carries the distant sound of a lyre, its notes sluggish, like even the musician's half asleep. Dionysus chuckles, a low, sleepy sound. Bet that's Orpheus practicing lullabies and failing. You laugh, imagining the legendary bard botching a bedtime tune. The god's energy is infectious even if he's running on fumes. You notice his hands fidgeting, like he's itching to create something, anything to fix this divine disaster. You step over a puddle of wine. Classic Dionysus, the cool night air brushing your skin like a promise of rest. He pauses by a gnarled vine, running his fingers over its leaves. Soft, he murmurs, almost to himself. You raise an eyebrow, wondering if he's seriously considering weaving plants into clothes. Spoiler, he is. You're hooked though, because this isn't just about gods throwing tantrums. It's about a sleep-starved deity trying to make nights bearable for everyone. You yawn, the vineyard's rhythm lulling you, but Dionysus is already marching ahead, his cape catching on a branch. Come on, he calls. We've got work to do. You hurry after him, the stars above winking like they know something you don't. You're trudging behind Dionysus now, his silhouette weaving through the vineyard like a tipsy shadow, his goblet glinting under the moonlight. The air's thick with the sweet musk of grapes, and you're starting to feel like you're in one of those lucid dreams where everything's just a bit too vivid. Dionysus stops abruptly, nearly causing you to crash into him, and spins around, with a grin that's equal parts genius and unhinged. I saw it, he declares, eyes wide like he's just cracked the code to eternal naps. You raise an eyebrow, waiting for the punchline, because with this guy, there's always a punchline. He's talking about a vision, a literal dream that hit him during one of his rare wine-fueled dozes. You picture him sprawled under a vine, snoring loud enough to scare the satyrs, when bam, inspiration. He describes it like it's happening right now. A world where sleep isn't a battle, where you slip into something as soft as a grape's skin, as light as a summer breeze. Pajamas, he says, the word sounding absurdly modern in his ancient accent. You smirk, imagining him pitching this to Zeus like it's Shark Tank. Olympus edition. A historical fact grounds you. Ancient Greeks valued dreams as divine messages, often consulting oracles to interpret them. Temples to Asclepius, the healing god, even had dream incubation rooms where people slept hoping for godly advice. Dionysus' vision feels like one of those, but with more grapes and fewer cryptic riddles. You step over a fallen vine, the earth cool under your feet, and wonder if his idea's crazy enough to work. He's gesturing wildly now, painting the air with his hands, describing a fabric born from vineyards, something that hugs you like a warm hug from a slightly drunk aunt. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some ancient Greeks thought grapevines had mystical powers, believing their sap could inspire visions or even cure madness. Dionysus, being the grape god, Probably leaned into that hype, and you can't help but chuckle at the thought of him bottling vision juice as a side hustle. Historians still argue whether myths about Dionysus's ecstatic cults exaggerated their wild rituals, or if they really did dance themselves into divine revelations. Either way, you're standing in his vineyard, watching him buzz with the kind of energy you get when you're sleep-deprived but obsessed with a new project. You follow him to a clearing where the vines seem to glow under the stars, their leaves whispering in the breeze. He kneels, running his hands over a particularly lush plant, muttering about how it's basically a blanket already. You stifle a laugh, picturing him wrapping himself in leaves like a godly burrito. The guy's got no chill, but you're starting to root for him. His vision isn't just about him. It's about making sleep a luxury, not a chore. You glance at the sky where the constellations seem to nod in approval, or maybe you're just getting sleepy. So, he says, turning to you with a conspiratorial wink, we start with the vines. You nod, even though you're not sure what "we" means, because you're pretty sure you're not signing up for manual labor. He's already plucking leaves, his fingers stained purple, humming a tune that sounds suspiciously like a proto-lullaby. You catch a whiff of fermenting fruit, and it's oddly soothing, like nature's own white noise machine. You're tempted to flop down and test this vineyard bed yourself, but Dionysus is on a mission, and you're along for the ride. As you trail him deeper into the vines, you notice his cape's caught on a branch again, and you snicker. God of wine, not coordination, you mutter under your breath. He doesn't hear, too busy ranting about how his pajamas will outshine Apollo's golden chariot. You step over a puddle of what's definitely not water, the night air brushing your skin like a cool sheet. This is classic Dionysus. Big dreams, messy execution, and a weirdly contagious passion. You yawn, the vineyard's rhythm pulling you toward sleep, but his voice keeps you tethered. We're gonna change the world, he says, and for a second you believe him. You're still in Dionysus's vineyard, the moonlight painting everything in silvery hues, and the air's so heavy with grape sweetness you're half convinced you could bottle it as perfume. Dionysus is crouched near a vine, his cape a crumpled mess, muttering like a mad scientist who's had one too many energy drinks, or in his case, goblets of wine. You're trying to keep up, but his enthusiasm's like a runaway chariot, and you're just along for the bumpy ride. He's not weaving vines into pajamas yet, he's just staring at them, like they'll whisper the secrets of cozy sleep if he glares hard enough. You stifle a yawn, wondering if you're here to witness genius or a divine midlife crisis. He gestures for you to crouch beside him, and you do. Mostly because the ground looks soft and you're tempted to nap right here. Look at the mortals, he says, pointing to the distant flicker of village lights below Olympus. You squint, imagining farmers and potters tossing on straw mats, their wool tunics scratching like a bad rash. Dionysus isn't wrong. Sleep for humans is a nightmare. And not the cool prophetic kind. A historical fact pops up. Ancient Greeks often slept on simple pallets or straw-stuffed sacks, with rough linen or wool as their only bedding. Comfort wasn't exactly a priority when you were dodging plagues or Spartan invasions. You catch Dionysus, smirk as he mimics a mortal scratching under a chiton. They look like they're wrestling scorpions in their sleep, he quips, and you snort, picturing a philosopher flailing in a toga. A quirky tidbit surfaces. Some Greeks slathered their skin with olive oil before bed, thinking it'd soften their sleep experience, though it probably just made them smell like a salad. Historians still argue whether these bedtime rituals were about comfort or just superstitious attempts to ward off bad dreams. Either way, you're starting to see why Dionysus is obsessed with his pajama idea. Mortals need help, and he's got the ego to think he's the guy to deliver. You shift on the cool earth, the vineyards hum, lulling you, but Dionysus is all restless energy. He plucks a grape, rolling it between his fingers like it's a tiny oracle. If I can make sleep divine for them, he says, glancing at you, maybe they'll stop whining to Hypnos and throw me a proper festival. You grin, imagining a pajama palooza with satyrs in fuzzy onesies. His plan's starting to feel less like a drunken whim and more like a revolution. You notice a leaf stuck in his curls and you're tempted to point it out, but he's too busy ranting about how mortals deserve to drift off like gods. The breeze carries a faint whiff of fermenting fruit, and you're reminded of that time you tried sleeping in an old t-shirt that smelled like pizza. Comfortable, but not exactly divine. Dionysus stands, brushing dirt off his knees, and declares, "We start tomorrow." You raise an eyebrow because "we" still sounds like you're getting roped into something, but you're too intrigued to bail. He's pacing now, his bare feet leaving prints in the soft soil, talking about vines and softness and a fabric that dreams are made of. You chuckle, thinking he sounds like a poet who forgot his lines. As you follow him back through the vines, you step over a puddle of spilled wine because of course there's one. The stars above seem to pulse like they're cheering him on or maybe mocking his odds. "You ever try sleeping in armor?" he asks, glancing back with a grin. "Mortals do it, idiots." You laugh, picturing a soldier clanking around in bronze, dreaming of sheep. Dionysus' vision, pajamas for all, feels like a gift now, not just a godly side project. You yawn, the vineyard's rhythm tugging at your eyelids, but his voice keeps you anchored. "Tomorrow," he repeats like it's a sacred vow. You nod, the night air wrapping you like a blanket, ready to see where you're back in Dionysus's vineyard, the dawn just starting to blush pink over the horizon, turning the grapevines into a sea of soft shadows. The air's crisp, smelling of dew and that ever-present hint of fermenting fruit, like nature's brewing its own breakfast wine. Dionysus is already at work, his leopard skin cape slung over a branch like he's clocked in for the day. You rub your eyes, wondering how a god who parties all night is this functional at sunrise. He's kneeling by a pile of vines, his hands moving with surprising focus, twisting and knotting them like he's braiding a giant leafy friendship bracelet. You're here to watch him craft the world's first pajama prototype, and honestly, it's already looking like a craft fair disaster. He glances up, catching your skeptical stare, and winks. "You'll see," he says, his voice all sleepy. confidence like he's already picturing mortals worshipping him in cozy sleepwear. You squat beside him, the cool earth grounding you, and watch as he weaves the vines into something resembling fabric. It's rough, green, and smells like a salad gone rogue, but you can't deny the effort. A historical fact nudges your thoughts. Ancient Greeks were skilled weavers, using looms to craft linen and wool into tunics, though nothing as wild as vine-based pajamas. Their textiles were practical, not exactly built for lounging, which makes Dionysus's idea feel like a fever dream. You snicker as a vine snaps, sending a leaf into his curls. God of wine, not arts and crafts, you mutter, and he shoots you a mock glare before laughing. A quirky tidbit pops up. Some Greek myths claim Dionysus taught mortals to cultivate vines not just for wine, but for spiritual connection, believing the plant's twisty growth mirrored life's chaos. Now he's twisting those same vines into something practical, and you're half convinced he's making it up as he goes. Historians still argue whether his cult's rituals involved actual craftsmanship or just ecstatic dancing with whatever was handy. Either way, you're watching him fumble toward genius. The fabric takes shape, a patchy square that looks more like a picnic mat than pajamas. Dionysus holds it up, squinting like an artist appraising a masterpiece. Needs work? You, admits, tossing it over his shoulder where it lands with a sad thud. You bite back a laugh, imagining him strutting into Olympus with that as his big reveal. He's undeterred, though, grabbing more vines and muttering about softness and flow. You notice his fingers are stained purple, and the air's thick with that grape-sweet scent, lulling you into a drowsy haze. It's like the vineyard itself is conspiring to make you nap. You shift, your knees aching from crouching, and ask, "You sure this'll beat wool?" He grins, all divine swagger. "Wool's for sheep, this is for dreamers." You roll your eyes but can't help liking his vibe. He's weaving again, faster now, the vines bending under his will. You picture mortals back then, scratching through sleepless nights in their stiff chitons, and suddenly his plan doesn't seem so crazy. The breeze carries a faint lyre strum from somewhere, like Olympus is tuning up for a lullaby, and you yawn, caught in the vineyard's sleepy spell. As the sun climbs higher, Dionysus ties off his latest attempt, a slightly less awful vine cloth that might, with a lot of imagination, pass as a toga's weird cousin. He drapes it over his arm, striking a pose like he's modeling for a Greek statue. "Fit for a god?" he asks, and you snort, picturing Zeus' face if he saw this. "Fit for a compost heap," you quip, and he laughs, tossing it aside. The guy's got no quit in him, and you're starting to respect that. You step over a puddle of spilled wine because naturally, and feel the morning air brush your skin like a promise of rest. Dionysus is already back at it, humming as he weaves, and you're hooked on where this messy experiment's headed. You're still in Dionysus's vineyard, the midday sun now baking the earth, turning the air into a warm, grape-scented hug. The vines around you shimmer with dew, and you're starting to feel like you're stuck in a loop of Dionysus's wild ideas. He's sprawled on the ground, surrounded by a pile of failed vine cloth experiments that look like a satyr's laundry. Gone wrong. His leopard skin cape is crumpled beside him, and his curls are a mess, but his eyes are glinting with that stubborn spark of someone who's tasted failure and decided it pairs well with wine. You're here to witness the great pajama flop, and trust me, it's as glorious as it sounds. Dionysus holds up his latest prototype, a lumpy greenish sheet that smells like a forest had a midlife crisis. This, he declares, is revolutionary. You raise an eyebrow because it looks like something you'd use to scare crows, not sleep in. He drapes it over himself, striking a dramatic pose, only for the whole thing to unravel, vines tumbling to the ground like a bad magic trick. You burst out laughing and he glares, muttering, "Mortals would appreciate this." Sure, buddy, if mortals dreamed of sleeping in a compost pile. A historical fact grounds you. Ancient Greek clothing like chitons was often pinned or tied, not sewn, making Dionysus's woven vine cloth a bold but clunky leap. You kick a stray vine, the earthy scent rising, and tease, "Maybe stick to wine." He snorts, tossing a grape at you, which you dodge with a grin. A quirky tidbit surfaces. Some Greek festivals for Dionysus involved weaving grapevines into wreaths, believed to channel his divine energy. This pajama fiasco feels like he's taken that idea and sprinted into chaos. Historians still argue whether his myths exaggerate his creativity, or if he really inspired practical innovations beyond booze. Right now you're leaning toward drunk artist as he trips over his own failed prototype, cursing in a way that'd make Hera blush. You plop down on a patch of soft earth, the vineyard's hum wrapping you like a blanket. Dionysus is undeterred, gathering the scattered vines with a sigh. "It's too stiff," he admits, rubbing his neck like he's already imagining the world's worst sleep. You nod, remembering that time you tried sleeping in a stiff jacket. 0 stars, would not recommend. He's ranting now about how the vines are too brittle, too scratchy, nothing like the dream-hugging fabric he saw in his vision. You're starting to feel his frustration, the kind that hits when your big idea crashes harder than a chariot with a broken wheel. The breeze carries a faint whiff of fermenting fruit, and you're half tempted to nap right here. But Dionysus's voice keeps you tethered. "I need something softer," he mutters, staring at the horizon like it'll cough up answers. You squint, noticing his gaze drift toward the east, where rumors of a far-off land with miraculous fabrics float like whispers. You've heard of silk, though it's barely a thing in Greece yet. More myth than market stall. He's not saying it out loud, but you can tell he's plotting a quest, because of course he is. You chuckle, picturing him bartering wine for fabric with some baffled merchant. As you stand brushing dirt off your hands, you step over a puddle of spilled wine, classic Dionysus, leaving a trail of chaos. The sun's high now, warming your skin, and the vineyard feels alive like it's rooting for him despite the mess. "Next time," he says, kicking the failed prototype, "it'll be perfect." You smirk, doubting it, but weirdly invested. His passion's contagious like a good yawn, and you're starting to believe he might pull this off. The stars are hiding now, but you feel their echo winking at this god who's failing spectacularly but refusing to quit. You yawn. the vineyard's rhythm tugging at you, ready to see what disaster or miracle comes next. You're standing in Dionysus's vineyard, but the scene's shifting fast, like you've been yanked through one of those divine portals gods love to flex. The air's no longer thick with Greek grape sweetness, it's humid, fragrant with unfamiliar spices and the faint rustle of strange leaves. You blink, and there's Dionysus, his leopard skin cape looking wildly out of place as he trudges through a lush foreign landscape. You're somewhere in the east, ancient Asia, where rumors of a miraculous fabric called silk have lured him like a moth to a flame. The sun's high, painting everything in golden heat, and you're sweating just watching him barter with a merchant who's eyeing his goblet like it's cursed. You're here to see Dionysus chase silkworm secrets, and it's already a mix of genius and total chaos. He's haggling now, offering a jug of his finest wine for a scrap of shimmering silk. The merchant, draped in flowing robes, looks unimpressed, probably because Dionysus keeps sloshing wine everywhere. You smirk, thinking, he's less god of commerce and more god of making a scene. A historical fact grounds you. Silk was a closely guarded secret in ancient China, with trade routes like the early Silk Road bringing it to the West only in tiny, exorbitant quantities by the 4th century BCE. Greece barely knew it existed, so Dionysus being here feels like he's jumped a few centuries ahead, which honestly tracks for a guy who lives on vibes. You step closer, dodging a stray chicken that's wandered into the market, and catch the silk's sheen as the merchant reluctantly hands over a small piece. It's softer than anything you've touched, like a breeze you could wear. Dionysus's eyes light up and he murmurs, "This is it." Like he's found the holy grail of pajamas. A quirky tidbit pops up. Ancient Chinese myths linked silkworms to divine origins, with legends of empresses discovering silk by unraveling cocoons. You chuckle, imagining Dionysus trying to charm a silkworm into spilling its secrets, probably with more wine. Historians still argue whether early Greek references to Saracen fabrics. He leads you up a misty path to Olympus's grand halls, his leopard skin cape swinging with every step. The silk vine cloth is draped over his arm, and he's humming a tune that's half lullaby, half drinking song. You step over a stray goblet, because, of course, he's spilled wine already, and feel the air shift, charged with divine energy. A historical fact grounds you. Ancient Greek festivals like the Dionysia often mixed revelry with rituals, where gods were imagined joining mortals in celebration. Dionysus hosting a pajama party feels like a mythologized version of those vibes, but with better outfits. You snicker as he trips on a cloud, catching himself with a dramatic flourish. God of wine, not balance, you quip. And he winks, tossing a grape that you dodge with a smirk. A quirky tidbit pops up. Some Greek vases depict Dionysus lounging with maenads in flowing garments, hinting at his love for decadence. This party's his chance to flex that flair, and you're picturing Zeus in a silk vine onesie looking deeply unimpressed. Historians still argue whether myths about divine gatherings were symbolic or just epic fan fiction. Right now you're in the thick of it, watching Dionysus barge into a golden hall where gods are already lounging. The scene's absurd. Athena's polishing her spear in a corner, Hera's fussing with peacock feathers, and Apollo's strumming a lyre like he's auditioning for a sleep playlist. Dionysus claps his hands and all eyes turn to him. "Behold," he announces, unfurling the silk vine fabric like it's a royal decree. You stifle a laugh as Hermes, ever the prankster, whispers, "Is that a tablecloth?" The gods gather, curious but skeptical, and Dionysus starts passing out makeshift pajama tunics he's somehow whipped up. You're handed one too, and it's surprisingly soft, though it smells faintly of grapes like you're wearing a vineyard. You slip it on, the fabric cool against your skin, and join the gods as they sprawl on cushioned couches. The halls, lit by glowing orbs casting a dreamy glow, and you're caught in the surreal vibe, like a divine sleepover with way too much ego. Dionysus is in his element, pouring wine and hyping his creation. "Sleep like mortals never have," he boasts, and you notice Athena actually yawning, a rare sight. The silk vine tunics are a hit, though Poseidon grumbles about his being too snug. You chuckle, imagining him wrestling it off like a cranky toddler. The night drifts on, the air heavy with laughter and the clink of goblets. You yawn, the vineyard's sleepy rhythm echoing even here, and lean back, the fabric hugging you like a gentle dream. Dionysus catches your eye, grinning like he's won the Olympics. "Told you," he mouths, and you nod, impressed despite yourself. You step over another wine puddle, classic, and feel the starry glow above like Olympus is finally relaxing. The party's a success, but you're wondering how mortals will react to this divine fashion trend. Your eyelids droop, the hall's warmth pulling you towards sleep, but Dionysus's voice, soft now, keeps you tethered to the cozy chaos. You're drifting down from the glow of Olympus, the starry buzz of the pajama party still lingering like a half-remembered dream. The vineyard's earthy scent welcomes you back, the night air cool and heavy with grape sweetness, tugging at your eyelids like a gentle lullaby. Dionysus is ahead, his silk vine tunic shimmering under the moonlight, his leopard skin cape slung carelessly over one shoulder. He's practically bouncing high on his Olympian win, and you're trailing him through the vines. Your own prototype pajamas feeling surprisingly comfy, like a hug from a slightly tipsy cloud. You're here to see the mortal pajama revolution unfold, and it's about to get as wild as a Bacchic rave. Dionysus stops at a cliff overlooking a sleepy Greek village, its mud brick houses glowing faintly under torchlight. "They deserve this," he says, gesturing at the mortals below who you imagine are tossing on straw mats, their wool chitons scratching like a bad life choice. You nod, picturing farmers and poets waking up cranky, their dreams ruined by itchy bedding. A historical fact grounds you. Ancient Greeks often slept in their daytime clothes, with wealthier folks using linen sheets, but nothing designed for comfort like modern pajamas. Dionysus's silk vine creation is a game changer, and he's ready to spread it like wildfire, or, knowing him, like spilled wine. You smirk as he nearly trips over a root, catching himself with a dramatic twirl. God of wine, not footwork, you mutter, and he laughs, tossing a grape that you swat away. A quirky tidbit surfaces. Dionysian festivals sometimes involved gifting followers with ceremonial garments, seen as divine blessings. Now he's taking that vibe to the next level, planning to hand out pajamas like a godly Oprah. Historians still argue whether his cult's rituals inspired practical innovations or just fueled ecstatic chaos. You're betting on both as he starts distributing tunics to villagers who gather, bleary-eyed but curious, in the town square. You follow him down, the soft earth cushioning your steps, and watch as he hands a silk vine tunic to a farmer who sniffs it suspiciously, probably expecting it to smell like a tavern. Wear it. Sleep, Dionysus says, like it's a divine command. The farmer shrugs, slipping it on, and you catch his eyes widen as the fabric settles, soft and cool. Whispers spread, and soon a crowd's clamoring for their own. You're handed another tunic to pass out, and it's light as a breeze, with that faint grape scent you're starting to love. You yawn. The village's quiet hum lulling you, but the excitement's electric, pulling you along. The mortals are hooked, slipping into their new sleepwear and marveling like they've discovered fire. You chuckle, imagining a potter telling his kids, "Back in my day we slept in wool and liked it." Dionysus is in his element, pouring wine and hyping his creation like a market hawker. "Dream like gods," he shouts, and you notice even the village grump, an old shepherd, cracking a smile as he tugs on his tunic. The scene's chaotic, kids running, adults laughing. Someone's already spilled wine on their pajamas. But it's joyful, like the vineyard spirit has infected everyone. You step over a predictable wine puddle, the night air brushing your skin like a soft sheet. The stars above seem brighter, cheering this cozy revolution. Dionysus catches your eye, grinning like he's just invented happiness. "Told you they'd love it," he says, and you nod, impressed by how fast his idea's taken root. You're starting to see sleep not as a chore but as a gift, something worth celebrating. Your eyelids droop, the village's rhythm syncing with your own, but you're curious how far this trend will spread. Dionysus is already planning his next move, humming a sleepy tune, and you lean against a vine, ready for whatever's next in this dreamy, chaotic quest. You're still in the heart of that Greek village, the night air thick with the buzz of mortals marveling at their new silk vine pajamas. The vineyard's earthy grape-sweet scent lingers in the distance, but here, it's mixed with the smoky tang of torches and the soft chatter of excited voices. You're leaning against a mud brick wall, your own prototype tunic feeling like a second skin, and you're fighting a yawn as the village square hums with cozy chaos. Dionysus is at the center, his curls bouncing as he hands out more tunics, his goblet somehow still full despite all the splashing. You're here to ponder the big question. Did Dionysus really invent pajamas? Or is this just another myth inflated by his ego? The stars above seem to smirk like they're in on the debate. You watch a weaver inspect her new tunic, running her fingers over the silk vine blend with a mix of awe and suspicion. She's probably wondering if this God's gift is too good to be true. And you can't blame her. Dionysus isn't exactly known for reliability. A historical fact grounds you. Ancient Greek clothing evolved slowly, with linen and wool dominating, until silk trickled in centuries later, often reserved for the elite. Pajamas as we know them didn't exist in ancient Greece, making Dionysus's invention feel like a mythic leap. Maybe a story to explain why mortals started valuing comfy sleepwear. You smirk, imagining him claiming credit for every toga that got a bit softer. A kid runs by, his tunic flapping like a tiny cape, and you chuckle, dodging a grape he's flung in excitement. God of wine, not dodgeball, you mutter. And Dionysus, overhearing, tosses you a playful glare. A quirky tidbit pops up. Some Greek myths credit gods with inventing everyday items like Athena with the loom, or Hermes with sandals, to make them seem closer to mortals. Dionysus's pajama claim might be one of those. A story spun to make his wild cult feel relatable. Historians still argue whether these myths reflect real innovations or just poetic hype for divine branding. You're leaning toward hype as he trips over a basket, spilling tunics and wine in a spectacular mess. You step closer, the cool earth under your feet, and help gather the scattered tunics, their soft texture a reminder of his weirdly brilliant idea. The villagers are fully on board now, swapping stories about sleepless nights and how these dream cloths might change everything. You overhear a potter whisper that Hypnos himself must have blessed the fabric, and you grin, knowing Dionysus would love that rumor. The debate nags at you, though. Was this his idea, or did he borrow it from those silk whispers in the East? You picture him charming merchants for secrets, then spinning it as divine genius back home. Classic Dionysus move. The night deepens, the air brushing your skin like a lullaby, and you're caught in the village's sleepy rhythm. You yawn, handing a tunic to an old woman who nods gratefully, her eyes crinkling like she's already dreaming. Dionysus is quieter, now watching his revolution unfold, and you wonder if he cares about the truth or just the vibe. Maybe it doesn't matter. If mortals sleep better, does it matter who gets the credit? You step over a wine puddle, because naturally, and feel the stars' gentle glow, like they're nudging you to let the debate slide. The tunics are real, the comfort's real, and that's enough for now. You lean back against the wall, the village settling into a soft hum of laughter and yawns. Dionysus catches your eye, raising his goblet in a silent toast. History's tricky, he says, like he's reading your thoughts. You nod, amused because he's not wrong. Myths twist faster than grapevines. Your eyelids droop, the tunic's softness pulling you towards sleep, but you're still curious how this story spreads. The debate lingers, a quiet whisper under the starry sky, and you're content to let it simmer, wrapped in the cozy chaos of a god's wild dream. You're lingering in the village square, the night now deep and velvety, wrapping you in a quiet that feels like the world's holding its breath. The torches have burned low, casting flickering shadows on the mud brick walls, and the grape-sweet scent from Dionysus's vineyard feels like a distant memory, though your silk vine tunic still carries its faint echo. Dionysus himself is slouched on a wooden bench, his goblet finally empty, his curls drooping like he's run out of divine adrenaline. You're sprawled nearby, the soft earth cool beneath you, and you're fighting the pull of sleep as you watch him. This is the moment you've been waiting for. Dionysus, the god of excess, finally resting in his own creation. It's oddly peaceful, like catching a lion napping. He's wearing his prototype pajamas, the silk vine fabric draping over him like a liquid dream, and you notice his usual restless energy has melted away. His eyes are half closed, a sleepy smile tugging at his lips, and you can't help but feel a twinge of pride for him. A historical fact anchors you. Ancient Greeks revered Dionysus, not just for wine, but for his ability to blur boundaries between mortal and divine, chaos and calm. His myths often show him collapsing into rest after wild revels, a nod to the balance even gods need. Here in his pajamas, he's living that myth, and you're witnessing it firsthand. You shift, brushing a stray leaf off your own tunic, and chuckle softly. God of wine, not nap time, you whisper. But he doesn't stir, too lost in his cozy victory. A quirky tidbit surfaces. Some Dionysian rituals ended with followers sleeping in temples, believing rest brought them closer to his divine essence. You imagine those devotees would lose their minds seeing their god like this, snoozing in the world's first pajamas. Historians still argue whether these sleep rituals were about spiritual connection or just exhaustion from too much dancing. Watching Dionysus, you're betting on both. He's earned this nap. The village is quiet now, the mortals tucked into their new tunics, probably dreaming of vineyards and gods. You picture them, farmers and weavers, finally free from scratchy wool, and it hits you. This is what Dionysus wanted, not just for himself but for everyone. You yawn, the night's rhythm syncing with your own, and lean back, the stars above twinkling like they're applauding his success. The silk vine fabric feels like a second skin, and you're starting to understand why he's so obsessed. It's not just cloth. It's a promise of rest, a gift wrapped in grape-scented dreams. You glance at Dionysus again, his chest rising and falling, the tunic catching the torchlight's glow. He looks almost mortal like this, vulnerable in a way gods rarely are. You step over a predictable wine puddle, because even in sleep he's a mess, and feel the cool air brush your skin, soft as the fabric you're wearing. The vineyard's hum is faint, but there, like a lullaby woven into the earth. You're tempted to nudge him, ask if he's dreaming of more inventions, but you let him be. This moment, him resting in his creation, feels sacred, like the myth is writing itself. The night deepens, and you're caught in its sleepy spell, your eyelids heavy as the tunic settles around you. Dionysus murmurs something in his sleep, probably about wine or glory, and you grin, imagining him boasting to Hypnos, about outdoing him. The stars seem to wink, like they're in on the joke, and you wonder how this cozy revolution will ripple beyond this village. Your thoughts drift, soft and slow, as the earth cradles you. Dionysus's dream, pajamas for all, feels real now. Not just a godly whim, but a spark that might change nights forever. You yawn again, the world fading into a gentle haze, ready to see where this story goes next. You're stirring from the quiet of the village, the dawn's first light creeping over the horizon, painting the vineyard in soft pinks and golds. The air's crisp, carrying that familiar grape-sweet tang, and you're still wrapped in your silk vine tunic, its softness a reminder of Dionysus' wild dream. He's nowhere in sight, probably off refilling his goblet or napping in a ditch. Knowing him, you're standing at the village's edge, watching mortals bustle with a new kind of energy. Their silk vine pajamas tucked under cloaks, or slung over shoulders like badges of cozy pride. You're here to track how these pajamas spread across Greece, and it's already looking like a trend wilder than a Bacchic parade. You wander toward a market road, the earth cool under your feet, and spot a merchant loading tunics onto a cart, bound for Athens or maybe Corinth. Word spreading fast, farmers swapping stories of dream-filled nights, weavers begging for the silk vine recipe. A historical fact grounds you. Ancient Greek trade routes, like those linking city-states, carried not just goods but ideas, spreading cultural shifts faster than you'd expect. By the 5th century BCE, markets were hubs for everything from pottery to philosophies. So pajamas catching on isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. You smirk, imagining a trader pitching God-approved sleepwear next to olives and amphorae. Kid darts by, his tunic flapping, and you dodge a grape he's tossed, chuckling. God of wine, not target practice, you mutter, half expecting Dionysus to pop up and take credit. A quirky tidbit surfaces. Some Greek festivals featured gift-giving, rituals where cult leaders distributed tokens of divine favor like wreaths or robes. Dionysus' pajama craze feels like a mythic version of that, his followers flaunting their tunics like festival swag. Historians still argue whether his cult's influence shaped everyday life, or just fueled temporary mania. You're watching. Mortals trade tunics like currency, so you're leaning toward life-changing mania. You follow the road, the vineyard fading behind you, and reach a bustling port where ships bob under the rising sun. Sailors are haggling, and you overhear one boasting about Dionysus' dream cloth to a skeptical Cretan. The tunic's reputation is growing, whispered like a secret weapon against sleepless nights. You yawn, the sea's rhythm lulling you, but the excitement's contagious. A weaver nearby is trying to mimic the silk vine blend, her loom clattering, and you grin, picturing Dionysus cackling at her knockoff attempt. The fabric's not just clothing, it's a movement, spreading, from villages to city-states, wrapping Greece in a cozy embrace. You step over a puddle, not wine this time, just rainwater, and feel the morning air brush your skin, cool and soft like the tunic you're wearing. The stars are gone, but their echo lingers, like they're cheering this sleepy revolution. You spot a philosopher in a market stall scribbling, about how divine rest reshapes the soul, probably inspired by his new pajamas. You chuckle, imagining him debating Socrates in a silk vine onesie. The trend's unstoppable now, carried by traders, pilgrims, and gossip. Each tunic a thread in Dionysus' legacy. Your eyelids droop, the roads hum syncing with your own, but you're hooked.